Welcome back to another series of Christchurch from the Streets.
It's now over 4 years since the first earthquake.
Back then, we were faced with extraordinary changes.
This is a series about us and our ever-evolving worlds.
We're all about ideas for change. In each programme, we'll ask about our future and about what could be.
We figured the best way to do this is to meet the people who are embracing that change.
Amy Burke is someone who got sick of waiting for a better world. She took matters into her own hands and has worked out a way to brighten the lives of many.
I work as a cleaner in Restart Mall, and I was coming out and seeing people cold and hungry and decided something had to change. And I'm the biggest procrastinator, so I decided it was winter and I needed to stop procrastinating and just jump in. This is lunchtime at Latimer Square. We bring down hot food, have TUI campers come so we can keep it hot and provide food for people to eat for lunch.
Have you got any idea of the numbers out there?
I couldn't accurately even begin to guess.
Are you right there with it? Here you go. Thank you. Very hot. You're looking good.
Where's the food coming from?
Food's coming from under the red veranda and other items have been donated via the Facebook page.
Since you
Little bit of
like
dead
them
horse.
so much.
Thank you very much.
The last one.
Thank you.
All gone.
A streetie is somebody that has no house as such or flat and is not really capable of providing his own needs. It's a pretty hard life. You know, you tend to get depressed a bit. That's why a lot of us drink and smoke drugs.
We all see each other like family. Yeah.
All been through similar things and similar natures. And
we just got made homeless over the weekend from our landlord.
Is that right?
Yep.
So where are you sleeping?
We find places to sleep. An abandoned building at the moment.
Where are you sleeping tonight?
I sleep under a bridge.
Oh, I know where you live. I live around the corner from you.
Yeah.
You've got a bike, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
For me to get into a house, I need $350 a week. I can't afford that. I'm only getting 170. So how the hell do I get a house out of that?
Sort something out for the night. Kind of got to keep it a bit.
Yeah. Read 17.
Yeah, something like that.
Are you a streetie?
Aye. Well, so is Jesus Christ. He lived on the street. He's God.
The Facebook page is just going nuts. So we had hundreds of volunteers, we now have thousands. Yeah, we've got people following from America, Australia, England, all around the place.
It's changing your life, eh?
Yep, it's changing my life, but most of all, it's changing these guys' lives. Oh, it's awesome. And the response from the food's just been amazing.
I'm proud of my mum.
How's she coping with it?
Really good.
Is she?
Yeah.
We sometimes tell her that she's working a bit too hard. She should have breaks. Yeah.
And does she listen to you?
Sometimes.
I think there's a lot of pressure, but she's the strongest person I know, one of them. So this is just a little milestone for her, you know.
No, this is the days of our lives.
Yeah. How's it done today?
Lovely.
Oh, it's gone really good today. We're just getting more and more people.
This is the collection point at North New Brighton School. A lot of people wanted to help but didn't know where to start. Now they're helping to support it because without their donations I'd have nothing to gift.
We've got tin soups with pull tabs, baked beans, more tinned fruit, ravioli, tomatoes and creamed rice, and a bootload more in the car. That's got fruit and things in it.
I can't believe the generosity of people in Christchurch. It just amazes me. We're all looking for somewhere to help and they're all now helping. It's just fantastic. Yeah, these straws aren't going to be big enough.
Right, no. Sorry about it.
Don't be sorry. This is awesome. So the lovely sofa that's coming is from one of our collection points in St Albans. So people drop off to here and she brings it down to us, and we also rope her in wherever else possible. I'll take that, we'll put that, find somewhere in there, and you're here to help sort too. That's now, for some people, it's part of their routine. Go to the supermarket and grab an extra few items, go to the second-hand shops and get extra large clothing and things like that. It's cool. It's bringing everyone together to help support these people that are out here doing it rough.
How did you get involved?
Just through the Facebook page, just saw that she needed a bit of a hand, and yeah.
It's gone ballistic. It's been really awesome. You know, all the messages you get from there and the people handing stuff in, it's just been fantastic. Put my faith in humanity again.
Have you got too much stuff?
No. Well, once we start servicing the other areas, the people in the cars, the people couch surfing, this will soon go pretty quick. It's a full-time job. My cleaning's part-time at the moment, so yeah. And somewhere in there I fit 4 kids in a household. Most days are about 17, 18 hour days at the moment with the page and work and my house. So it's quite exhausting. This is the takeaway, load my boot up pile today. This has got to go today in my car. And we'll be out on the streets tonight. 6:15, running a little bit late today. The guys are usually there before me anyway. I try to be as punctual as possible just to keep with the routine. Because a lot of them, it's what they need is stability and, you know, consistency.
People are relying on it now?
Yeah. Well, they were sifting through rubbish bins for food. Now they don't need to do that. I see it as survival instinct. For the half an hour that I'm out here, now, I'll be frozen to the core.
I'll give it to you.
It makes me feel better. I at least know that these guys are going to be warm and fed, so I can sleep a little bit easier at night, but nights like this when it's freezing, it's still a bit of a worry. Yeah, well, it's supposed to get really cold. A lot of it is because of the earthquakes. These guys were, you know, feeling forgotten. They're not numbers, they're people, and they're all lovely and got different stories. And you're welcome. So you guys are looking good, man.
But with like 5 or 6 blankets on me, warm air.
So you'll be outside?
Outside. Stuff like this counts. There are small things in it, like food and. Yeah, it does.
Do you want a fruit salad or a meat?
Fruit salad's good.
Everybody seems to think this is an amazing thing that I've done, but it's, I don't know, I don't quite see it that way. It's something that was needed to be done.
A few kilometres to the east of the city is where so many of us lost our homes. Bexley was, until recently, the electorate of ex-Labour MP and now Mayor Leanne Dalzell.
This is part of the residential red zone, so over 7,000 properties in Christchurch have been red zoned by the government. I lived here for about 12 years before I had to move on, but yeah, I enjoyed representing this area. A lot of people, obviously, as you can see, very affected. That's where I used to live, at the end of the driveway. They've put a fence up there at the moment, and I came by here September 2012 just to call by, and there was a gate up basically saying that I couldn't enter the property because it was going to be demolished. I walked up and sort of basically said goodbye to the house, came back to the car, and that was the day that I cried. I don't cry a lot during this whole process, but that was a day that really got to me.
Do you feel like the East sometimes gets forgotten?
Oh, I think that a lot of people in the East feel like they were forgotten right from the outset. There has been such a focus on rebuilding, the anchor projects, the blueprint, all of those are focused on the central city. It does leave people with this feeling that they've been left out of the equation, and we want to see some anchor projects over here. And perhaps that's something that could be part of our next conversation with central government. I have to say that I loved living here. I absolutely loved it. And I loved the neighbours, and I loved, you know, the residents association. I just loved the sense of community. But in the end, I couldn't wait to leave because it was just, you know, my heart used to sink every time I got close to home. Well, you know, people should be feeling like they're happy to be home. You know, there's been a lot of, you know, sort of criticism laid at the feet of the previous council. But I think that the difference between the previous council and this council is that the previous council was elected not knowing that they were about to confront, you know, the most, you know, significant, you know, set of events that anyone could face. Every single person who ran for council this time knew what they were doing and knew that they were prepared to stand up for the people of Christchurch as a whole. Over here in the east, there's just such a range of emotion. You know, I remember describing it once as, you know, ranging from incandescent rage to abject despair. You know, it's not healthy for whole communities to be kind of ripped apart without feeling like they've been part of a process of understanding why it was important to disengage from an area like this.
Rob Gordon is an Australian clinical psychologist who spent the past 30 years working with people affected by emergencies and disasters right around the world. Rob's been a frequent visitor here to Christchurch since the quakes and has become a go-to guy when it comes to understanding our emotional well-being.
The unique feature of this disaster is that the actual reconstruction is out of people's hands. They have to wait for very long periods of time until the insurance company and EQC respond. So this sense of helplessness, I think, is one of the most challenging problems because competent people are motivated to tackle their problems, and they can't. One of the things I noticed in Christchurch earlier on was that there was a lot more humour and playfulness. Flowers in the witches' caps in the road, for instance, and the paintings on the walls. I came back wondering what else will have been painted, but I didn't notice a great deal of new paintings and so on. What I did notice was a great deal of new building, as though that creative, humorous, emotional element has got absorbed in actual productive physical activity. Characteristics I see a lot of fatigue building up, both in the community members but also in the workers. They're not talking about it, but they're looking very tired. Around about this time in the third year and the fourth year, there is a real challenge for Christchurch to keep adapting the goodwill and the humour and the optimism to the level of fatigue. Healthy adaptation to a stressful situation and demand.
Every day, 27 new faces arrive in Christchurch from overseas. Many of them migrant workers here to help with the rebuild. The various nationalities and accents are playing an active role in how our city evolves.
After the earthquakes, the Arts Centre was in pieces. Today, the $300 million restoration project is well underway, and some of the workforce have come a long way to help future-proof our precious heritage.
Yeah, the call went out. We had a couple of guys from Scotland join our team early on, and they were well connected into the stonemasonry scene there. We're also very fortunate in that the construction economy in the UK wasn't as good, so there were a lot of people looking for work.
From the outside, it looks like an old heritage building. You would never know that it's, you know, a modern building on the inside. It's full of concrete and steel. Keeping it old, but making it new. My visa only lasts for another 2 years. I can't settle for that long, but I think it's a good project. It's a good opportunity to learn, see the world.
Well, some of your team have come from the UK.
Yeah,
right?
There's probably only a few thousand stonemasons back home even. It's not like a bricklayer or a carpenter, you know, it's such a niche little trade. Come on, get on with it.
This is steady down.
It's very soft, yeah.
But what do you call yourselves?
Stonemasons.
Yeah.
Like a mason is somebody that does sort of brickwork, and a stonemason is someone that does stonework, a bricklayer, so with different.
You've got different types of masons as well.
Yeah.
You've got a banker mason who gets the blocks, and we get our chisels out and we carve different shapes. And then you've got fixer masons who go out on site and they go and fix the job into the building. This is sort of something pretty typical. We've got an old capital, and if you imagine, this would be sat underneath the lintel of a window, and you'd have a column coming underneath this, and it probably would have, in the earthquake, it would have fallen down, got damaged, and it's already re-weathered. We just carve it with our chisels and attempt to make something that looks a bit better than that.
So nothing's written down, there's no plan?
Measurements, templates, you go and get drawings initially, and that's all something you learn in your apprenticeship. With carvings, it gets to a certain point. These are the templates we'd use for something like a stone over there. But like you can see, like this is quite sort of geometric.
Yeah.
You know, you can take measurements for things like this, and then you get to a certain point with carving that it's all sort of freehand, and you're doing what you want.
Do you put anything personal into it?
Yeah. Usually in places that you can't see. So, for example, in the top of this, that's not going to be seen. That's going to be covered by another stone. You can put whatever you want in there. And the only person that's going to see it is the mason that takes it down in 100 years' time when I'm dead.
So you're staying?
Definitely when the work's here and there's plenty of opportunities, it's worthwhile hanging around.
Lots of opportunity.
It's cold, isn't it?
It's cold.
It's not as cold as back home.
No, it's not. It's pretty warm.
It's summer back home just down in Scotland, and this is what it's like. So
yeah. Heat pump everything.
We've got decorative elements, we've got block elements, so what you'll see when these buildings are restored is that these elements will be as good as new. They're very clever people. They're using methods that you know, have been used and crafted over a millennia, really.
With over 70% of the city being demolished and 90% of the homes damaged, the rebuild is expected to cost $40 to $50 billion. The big question, though, is will there be enough money to replace what we had?
Our finances are, dire. We're literally having to borrow for our rebuild, and we can borrow no more. So how we do things better, how we increase our income, reduce our expenditure, and free up some capital so that we can invest in the future of the East as well as the rest of the city. That's the challenge that we have in front of us.
What about the difficulties trying to develop in the central city, leasing, prices escalating? How can people combat those?
I think that the cost of floor space is certainly a huge challenge. There have been a number of developments in areas away from the central city, so down in Addington, of course, there's been a lot of development. There are going to be challenges in terms of the cost within the frame. But then I was speaking to a company that used to lease a lot more floor space than they're doing now, but they've just reorganised the way they work, and they've created quite an innovative way of utilising space, and I think that's going to be the way of the future.
Rob too has noticed us changing in his frequent trips across the Tasman. It seems for those of us affected by past events, the road to recovery may well be challenging.
The problem here is that the rebuild is going to be so extended. Around about this time, there'll be some people who are saying, I don't want to talk about the earthquake anymore. I've put it behind me, I want to move on. And others will be saying, I can't move on, it's still in my mind, there are still so many things going on for me. The people here and in every disaster need to make very conscious decisions to take care of themselves and to preserve those things that give their lives energy and value in ordinary times. Enjoyment, mixing with people, engaging in recreational pursuits, having downtime where they do nothing. And people universally feel that when they do stop and recharge, they go through this down stage, this sadness, this feeling of exhaustion. If you do that in smaller doses more frequently, you actually are less likely to get overwhelmed by it. Grief can be a constructive emotion if it doesn't overwhelm us.
You know, one of the really positive things happening here in Christchurch is the influx of talented young professionals committing to our rebuild, their ideas sometimes sparking radical new designs.
It would be fair to say that at the time of the earthquakes, architect Andrew Just was a man without commitment. But like many other young professionals in Christchurch, the quakes have galvanised him into action.
Hello, I'm Andrew Just and I'm an architectural designer based here in Christchurch. On the day of the earthquake, I was sitting about 30 metres that way in the Selwyn Street shops. I studied at Victoria in Wellington, in the School of Architecture there. I'd always joked that the building boom would be over by the time I graduated, but I didn't realise it would be a global recession. So I thought I'd take the opportunity to indulge in some wanderlust and travelled for 3 months through the Middle East. I'd come back to work on a castle. Kind of just landed unexpectedly working on the grain silos out at Little River. Just over here. I'd never really felt that this was where my future would be. It was overseas for me.
Life's changed.
Absolutely. There's this real potential to do things. That's tangible here, I reckon, more than anywhere else I've ever been. I think it makes for an exceptionally interesting environment. We're on the corner of St Asaph and Madras and High Street, so the CPIT's just over here, and you know that traditional lovely walk and route into town down High Street is just up here. We're at the Art Box, which has got this lovely location. Art Box is a community project, but what it's now doing is that's providing the seed for a commercial development. We didn't realise when we started that we were designing essentially a spatial system. We were asked to arrange shipping containers into art gallery space and said, look, can we have a bit of room to manoeuvre? And what we were looking at was uncertainty. So can't trust the ground, so make the thing strong in of itself. Don't know what it's going to be needed for in 5 years, so make it flexible so that you can use it for something else. And we don't know where it should be, so make it transportable. Christchurch has had big bursts in architecture, and neo-Gothic and then the post-war modernists. Those were big periods of new thinking from especially young architects, actually. And it does feel like we're pretty ripe for new ideas and new thinking.
Andrew is still in his 20s and is now designing a large commercial development. However, his newly formed practice field has yet to find a permanent home.
We made friends with the underground crew and they moved here and then we followed them.
So you're squatting in a coffee shop?
Exactly.
Are you?
Well, actually, coffee and architecture are quite closely linked industries in many ways. This is quite a new context we're operating in. Part of the approach of it is by distributing money out on a more commercial project, we've earned a slightly higher rate, in which case it opens us up a little bit to actually be like, right, you know, I'm actually going to work on this project, which doesn't bring any money in, but it's got wonderful community aspects to it, or something I really believe in. And as an organisation, then Field just gives people the time to do that. Yeah, so this is actually the major project we've got at the moment. It's called Box Quarter, looking at trying to get some apartments in here and some retail down the bottom here, some hospitality and so on. You can see here are some offices and Art Box worked in and these couple of courtyards and laneways and so on. Art Box has really been the catalyst for this, which is the Art Box structural module. This can stack up to 3 stories high and arrange separately, and then you've got panels that infill and so on. It's an extremely simple kind of spatial system and concept, but we're obviously pushing it to quite a big scale over here.
Is this a new concept in construction?
Yeah, but it's interesting because it also fits into, it's quite kind of modernist, if you know what I mean, and Christchurch has a very strong modernist heritage, and so it's got a little bit of a hat tip to that.
Well, this is currently being built.
Yeah, it is.
It started.
Yep, it started, yeah. And so these are being welded up out in Hornby, these frames. And then obviously these guys are busy making panels at the moment, and they're working on the windows which go up behind us there.
So is the council friendly towards you?
Yeah, they are, yeah. It's got such a strong logic to it, this art box system, that they really kind of understood that and got into it and understand like how they can then try and help as well. So it's been really nice. You know, starting with art box as quite a small thing, and then it suddenly turning into 200 odd boxes on this site. It's a very logical but quite powerful kind of progression up scale, you know. The intensity of this as a kind of a cultural movement at the moment is quite amazing and definitely unparalleled to earlier. And even, you know, globally, we're getting quite a lot of attention in terms of the number of these kinds of projects that are happening here.
Are you guys challenging the status quo?
I hope we are. That's our intention. And it's really about the values and stuff that we're pushing for, you know, innovation, creativity. We want more. We want different things. We don't want it to just be what it was.
In your opinion, Leanne, how important is the development of the central city to Christchurch?
Well, it is very important to our future, you know, and as I say, if we can get everyone resolved in their own personal situations, they can have a real say in what that future is going to be like.
How do you feel about the timeframes? You know, we continually seem to not make those marks.
And look, again, you know, I've done a lot of reading around post-disaster environments, and one of the early learnings that I sort of came across was that you had to balance speed, which is a demand, with deliberation, which is a necessity. Because, you know, I think there are some people who have a view that if you consult too widely or engage people in the decision-making process, that it slows things down. My view is that it always speeds things up in the long run. So I've come up with a new expression, which is take your time as quickly as you can.
Yeah, it's a really nice way to put it. Money makes things happen fast.
It does make things happen.
What we see in Christchurch is everywhere you look, people are working to preserve and re-establish their lives in the best way they can. Everyone should be incredibly optimistic. How often do you get a chance to reimagine a city? And that's what will be going on here. There's no doubt in my mind that if I come back here in 10 years' time, and I'd love to do it, I'll see a fantastic, bustling city. It'll be quite different to the old Christchurch, but it will be a creative, new city. And I'll be very surprised if Christchurch doesn't come up with some real innovations, because there is this opportunity to really look at things in a new way.
Thanks, New Zealand On Air.